throw balls far. You want good words? Data languager.
Talk real sports with a real man.
Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
And now, here's the be-all, end-all, know-it-all of high school, college, and pro sports. Aaron Skinny Count with the Skinny on Sports.
We're talking about practice, man. I'm the MVP.
Good Monday out there, Western Oklahoma. Welcome to the Skinny on Sports right here on 98.1 FM, the Sports Animal. Glad to have you along for the next hour. We're going to wrap up the NFL draft with more of a local flavor. Oklahoma had the nation's longest streak of having 4 players drafted snapped in this NFL draft. They'd had it 16 years in a row of having at least 4 guys drafted in the NFL draft, only 3 this season. So, question, whose fault is it? I've got 3 different things that I could blame that streak being snapped on. OSU, no picks this year. Nobody was drafted from Oklahoma State. But next year looks like it's going to be a bunch. When you look at who came back, who's still there, I think Oklahoma State's going to be able to be one of those ones that has a lot of folks in that draft next year. We'll talk about that. NBA playoffs, Thunder looking to sweep the Pels tonight. You know, Jared, we're not in Kansas anymore, at least in the NBA playoffs. Something we've talked about, maybe the changing of the guard. If Denver wins tonight, who would have thought in the NBA world that you could have Steph, KD, and LeBron all out in the first round or before, even with Steph?
Isn't it great? It's
kind of wild, isn't it? It's like there's some new teams that you kind of. It is kind of fun. There's still the defending champs. Boston's kind of been a team that's been in the mix obviously for the last few years, but there's some new blood. It feels like coming in.
I just think it's great because we don't have talking idiots still in the playoffs. We don't have to hear their post-game comments.
Yeah, we're going to have to hear about them, though. Ooh, if L.A. would have just blown that game to the Pelicans.
Yeah, if and nuts.
They'd be in the Western Conference Finals against Denver.
If and buts.
Candy and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Man, last night, Minnesota finishes off the sweep of Phoenix. How much of a chance do you give them against what looks like a potential second-round matchup against Denver? And then if you're a Thunder fan, do you want the Clips or do you want the Mavs? We'll hit some high school sports. We have Class 4A baseball rankings, which I'm going to tell you who the Elks are going to play according to those rankings that are posted on the OSSAA rankings website. I don't know when. I think I know the day. Oh, I'm positive I know the day.
Oh, we know the day.
Just don't know what time yet. So we got that. Regional track meets is something that happened kind of while we were at the baseball game on Friday. Because of the impending weather on Saturday, all the regional track meets were moved to today. But that also throws a problem for some of those athletes, mainly girls golfers that also run track. I know there's a few teams out here that are greatly affected by this. Is there anything that can really be done? I had somebody asking me, well, why can't they delay the golf tournaments till Tuesday and Wednesday? Well, kind of gets – it's just – is there anything that can be done to help out these multiple sport spring athletes? We're still waiting on Class A and B baseball state tournament brackets. And I mentioned girls golf is underway. We can tell you how to stay in touch with that throughout the day. 225-9698 is the phone or the text line. That is 225-9698. Give us a call, shoot us a text. We can talk about any of those things. Whatever else might be on your mind, feel free to chime right in at 225-9698. If you're going to be outside the listening area, a couple ways to stay in touch with the show. You can log on to kadsam.com or you can download the app. The app's got it all. It's got the radio. It's got the Penny News. It's got Big Elk and Paragon TV. Big Elk TV. Today and tomorrow we'll have updates from the Class 4A Girls State Golf Tournament down in Blanchard at Winter Creek. Wednesday, I'm sure we'll be here at the Elk City Golf and Country Club doing the same thing with boys regionals. And then Thursday, we'll have some baseball from Ackley Park. So a busy, busy, busy week for Elk City Athletics. Spring sports, they're all over the place.
And hopefully nothing on Friday, right?
Yeah, hopefully not.
Hopefully nothing.
That's exactly right. That's why I didn't mention Friday. Just move on after Thursday.
Well, hopefully some of the smaller schools are playing
Smaller
Friday.
schools could be playing Friday. That way everybody can watch. And so we got that Skinny on Sports podcast as well. Anywhere you can find any podcast, we'll be right there. If you missed your show, you can go back and hear what we had to say about a certain topic. How are you today, Jared?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. It's a nice weekend. Relaxing weekend. For some, the further east you went in Oklahoma, it wasn't near as relaxing as, sad.
No.
Sad, obviously. It was one of those things, and people like to, throughout a lot of that day on Saturday, you get on the social medias and, even talking like, oh, yeah, well, I thought there was, where's the tornadoes weatherman? Because they told you about it throughout the middle of last week moving into Saturday. Like, stay weather aware. This thing is going to be one of those possible outbreaks that you remember the date of.
Yeah.
And, you get on social media about 6 p.m. or so and like, oh, what a huge weather bust, da-da-da. And then next thing you know, it's not. And so, obviously our prayers go out to all the people affected by those storms on Saturday night. The pictures are just devastating from a lot of different places, Sulphur being kind of the main one. There's times where you see, like, rain. They call it, like, train up through areas. It happened west of Leedy. I know at one point the radar showed on Saturday morning there's already 5 inches out there west of Leedy a little bit.
Yeah.
You very rarely see that with tornadoes. And to think about that town getting hit twice in a row,
yeah,
that just doesn't really happen very often. And
that was bad.
In the same kind of outbreak, so, yeah.
I didn't want to believe it. I got up knowing that's, I was so tired. I watched as long as I could, then I went to sleep knowing, okay, we're done tonight with our area.
Mm-hmm.
Said a little prayer, went to bed, and woke up, and first thing I did, check, okay, what happened? Hopefully it wasn't bad. And the first picture I saw was that picture of downtown Sulphur. And I thought, no, that can't be real. That has to be from a movie, and it was real, and it was sad. It's just hearing about the fatalities things can be replaced, right, and rebuilt. But hate hearing about people losing their lives.
Well, it was such a weird. We were obviously almost desensitized to the coverage of severe weather because throughout our entire lives it's just gotten more and more. And but the weird thing about Saturday to me was because it was dark and lots of rain with it, you didn't see any of it.
No, yeah,
it felt like I was 10 years old again. And Gary was having to tell you where it was instead of you physically watching it because the storm, they couldn't see anything. Mm-hmm. It was dark. It was raining. I think I did see one like still photo or maybe a small little video of the Ardmore one, and that was just because maybe there's before it went through there more lights at a bigger place that Ardmore is. But that was the weird part about it. It was like you were literally. They had the radar zoomed in to tell you the streets, and then of course, the same thing happened out here when in 2017 you're watching the radar, what certain things look like on radar, and all of a sudden you see the hook, and then the colors change, and then like so they're watching, knowing, oh my gosh, that those different blue colors mean.
Yeah,
it got hit,
or it's a debris
ball. Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, you know exactly what that means
whether it be trees or
unfortunately in the middle of town, what that means. And
like they had in the city, that's what they were following. That's where they're really following. Then, excuse me. Then, so there's a tornado around the Ardmore area, and then they showed a picture that they were able to get, because of lightning flash, and when David Payne says, "Oh, that's bad," I thought, oh, no.
And I wondered to myself, because I was, of course, now listen, there at one time I think Lacey said there was like 7 different tornado-warned storms and at the same time. Yeah. So, and it wasn't, they were following the kind of to the east sides of the metro. And when he said it was bad, I wondered to myself, is he thinking one of two things or both at the same time? Yeah, that's a pretty big tornado in Ardmore, and also we never even mentioned it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it was like, there was just so much going on. And then
I mean, how can they cover all of it
can't.
at once?
And they did a heck of a job. I was watching Channel 9 too, and it was like, he would be talking about one, and then Lacey would say, "Oh, and don't forget about this one, folks." It was just there for about an hour and a half. It seemed like that's all there was. Like the first time I've ever heard him say this, he goes, "Hey, take off the severe thunderstorm warnings, like on the map, because it's just like jumbling everything up. There was so much."
Yeah.
So yeah, it's bad. It was a bad night on Saturday in the state of Oklahoma. There's no doubt about that. Like I said, thoughts and prayers. I know that's the storm down there in Ardmore has caused Elk City's track team to go to a different place because of Plainview being kind of in the crosshairs of that. So I know that's already changed a venue. Instead of at Plainview, they went to Moore High School today for that. So it's part of spring in Oklahoma, but it never gets easy when you start to see those photos and videos of what the weather can do here in this state for sure.
And this week too, it looks like there's more rain chances, and when it's late April, early May, they say rain and thunderstorm chances. It's just where we live. We're used to it. Just we got to be aware of it. It's about midweek when that goes down, which I wonder if that's going to change anything for us on Thursday. Maybe even time-wise. Maybe that's why we're still waiting on a time.
Somebody asked me and said, well, 2 games on Thursday, but I would imagine, of course, Manford is a long ways away. Well, nobody knows that yet. But anyway.
Unofficially. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty long ways away. So there's probably a limit for what they would want to do as far as early goes. 11 a.m. They still got to get out, leave at 7. So we'll see what's going to happen. We do have those Class 4A baseball rankings. Came out last night on the OSSA rankings website. And so when you look at these, it's the top 16 teams that were all regional champions from last week. And so how this goes is we know not only the pairings for this week, but also that then carries over into what would be the state tournament bracket. And so the very first thing you notice when you look at the OSSA rankings page is Tuttle's number 1, and not only number 1, every coach voted them number 1, as they have all 16 first-place votes. That surprises me just a little. Not that they're number 1. It surprises me that they got all of those votes. I'm sure, though, 33-4 record, and also the defending state champs gives them the nod, and in my opinion, rightfully so. I don't have any problem with them being number 1. I'm just a little bit surprised that they got all 16 first-place votes.
Yeah, and I think they also look at who they played throughout the year, one of those being Elk City, and they split with them, and the success they had against some quality teams. So I'm with you. I don't have a problem with it, them being number 1, and it just – I think that's what the coaches look at, too, is their quality of work.
Yeah, I do, too. No doubt. So it goes Tuttle 1, Blanchard's 2, Elk City 3. So what does that tell us? It tells us, one, that Elk City as the 3rd seed, to go by these rankings, which that's how it works, they would play Manford, host Manford on Thursday. The Manford Pirates 22-10, coming out of District 8 in Class 4A. And one thing you'll notice if you start to kind of look through not only these rankings but also kind of districts, District 8 has 4 teams in the super regional round or the area round. Cushing, Perkins, North Rock Creek, and Manford. So that's, kind of compare that to the Big Elks district, and the Big Elks are the only one that survived. So, you take that into account for what the challenge might be. But as I mentioned, they're 22-10. Kind of looking at some of their stats, they have three hitters that hit above 300 this season. They've got 3 guys that threw over 40 innings. And then 5 guys that threw over 20. So that's quite a bit. What?
When you're ready, I got semi-breaking news.
You have state tournament brackets?
No, and we won't, because there is a regional yet to be completed.
Oh.
Ampo and Sterling will finish their regional tournament tonight at 4:30 or today at 4:30.
Okay.
So we're not going to have an official bracket until tomorrow morning. This is coming from the school, from Canute.
Yeah.
So that's Class A. So I
bet we have a class unless there's something like that.
Unless there's something like that too. So that's what we're looking at. A lot of parents want to know if we're going to school on Thursday. Yeah. that's really why we're talking about this. Is that a lot of schools let out. Those small schools say no school.
Yeah, there's no school Friday anyway either, right?
No.
And then there's softball Wednesday.
They've already called it for Wednesday.
They have. So it's going to be a 2-day week. Gotta love it.
One of my kids loves it. The other, my oldest hates it. My little one, my James, she's done with school this year. She loves school, but every day it's, do we have school tomorrow? Do we have school tomorrow?
How many days?
How many days are left?
How many days? All right, so looking at some of the matchups with these rankings in Class 4A and the baseball super regionals, Elk City and Manford would be, what people listening for sure want to hear about that. But when you look through the rest of it, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the top 8 are schools that were west of I-35. Hilldale at 5, Cushing at 8 are the 2 that aren't. I don't think that surprises anybody because I think most people that watch throughout the season, if you look at who teams played, who teams beat, that was a big strength out here on this side of the state. Mm-hmm. Second thing I notice, as far as especially for Elk City, Tuttle is on the opposite side of the state tournament bracket.
Okay.
So that's a little different than the last couple of years.
So refresh my memory and listeners' memory. This isn't reseeded.
No. This is set.
This is set.
This is set. So if everybody holds serve in the super regionals, it would be 1-8, 2-7, 3-6, 4-5. Now, so you also notice something else. 3 and 6, Elk City and Chickasha. Mm-hmm. That is an incredibly tough first round game.
It would be.
Chickasha came out here a few weeks ago and beat the Elks on a home run in the 7th. I know they got some good arms. Obviously, the Elks would have, Mayfield on the mound in game 1 more than likely, especially if that's the opponent. And, oh, by the way, a little bit of recent history from last year at the regionals. I know there was chirping that day.
Oh, I ran in.
Remember that.
I won't say who, but I ran into a parent this weekend. Asked him, "Who do you want?" He goes, "I want Chickasha for this regional." And I don't think that's. I thought about that. Well, maybe them, but I think they're.
They're too good.
They're too good.
Too good for now. Yeah. But that could be a possibility in the first round of the state tournament. But that'll be official coming up here at some point today, I would assume. With these because here's the deal: because there is the rankings out, that means all of the regionals were finished before, the weather on Saturday. Mm-hmm. So, but we can figure that out ourselves that we know the kind of how that works. So it'll be Elk City and Manford Thursday, 2 games. If game would be on Friday. Winner of that 3-game series would go to the 4A baseball state tournament. Okay, so regional track meets were supposed to be held on Saturday. 4A, 3A, 2A, and Class A were all postponed to today because of the widespread weather event that was forecasted and came about on Saturday. Problem for some being today is also, as we mentioned, first round of state girls golf. And now you have to have athletes that would be at both. You can't be at 2 places at once. Is there really anything that can be done? I was being asked yesterday, well, why can't they just delay the golf tournaments by a day? Well, for one, I'm sure the golf courses are already prepared for today and tomorrow with their schedules. We don't have any idea what they might have coming Wednesday because that was going to be an open date. So I think that becomes a problem, at least with golf being one of the things that's involved. I mean, I know here, and I don't know how it works everywhere else, but I know here if you have multi-sport athletes competing in the same seasons, like in the spring, they're asked and forced to make a choice for priority.
Oh, well, Okay.
And I don't know honestly, I don't know what else you could do besides that. I mean, it's spring. It's springtime in Oklahoma. The weather is more than likely changing something in this, 3-week run of playoffs, right? Mm-hmm. It would be way more shocking if the weather didn't mess something up than if it did. And so from an OSSA, the question being toward the OSSA, from their perspective, I don't know that there's anything that they can do to combat this. I mean, I think they made the wise choice, and not even necessarily for daring, track meets last all day long. But not only that, but then think of if
so do golf tournaments in a way.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily just the time there and getting something completed. You also got to think about the travel to and the travel from. I know Cherokee was where the Merritt was going for a regional track. Mm-hmm. Guess what? What name did you see on the screen all morning? It was Cherokee in northern Oklahoma. There was constant barrage of wind and hail, all the way up through there. And then you think, obviously, Elk City was supposed to be in Plainview. Okay, are the people traveling up I-35? That wouldn't have been safe whatsoever at that time when there might have been travel. So, I just don't think there's anything from an OSSAA standpoint. I don't think there's anything that they can do. It just is what it is, and I think it's more on the individual schools to try to regulate it, or like I said, I know what happens here. And I'm just not sure that there's any other way to do that, to try to take, any question marks away. And sure, it's awful. You've got somebody that's really good at track and can play golf. Yeah, it stinks. It stinks for the person that it is. It stinks for the team that they're leaving, whether it be the track team or the golf, what have you. Mm-hmm. I know Moreland's got a really good girls golf team. And they also have like 4 of them that run the 4x100 meter relay that are state champs. Well, what are you going to do? Well, you're going to go run in the regionals, get yourself qualified for an event you can win at state, whereas, I don't know that they're anywhere near the favorites in golf, but it still stinks for the golf part of it too. I just don't think there's anything that can happen.
No, I think, and you're right. They're in a jam. The OSSA with this, and then I just wonder, could they build in days like for something like this, like a contingency plan? Days like, okay, we reserve this day. If this happens, we can move it to this day. And they tell those sites that are hosting, like Winter Creek, for example, okay. We got you Monday, Tuesday. Keep Wednesday open too, in case we need to move things around. Maybe they do that. I don't know. But no, I think you're right. I think it should come down to the school, because when a kid chooses to play 2 sports, they got to prioritize it. What is your 1? What's your 2? And I love kids playing as many sports as they can. You've always heard about the benefits of that, but they're just going to have to make a choice, I think.
Yeah, I think it comes from the school level, the athlete level, and OSSA's hands are just kind of tied. We already talked about Class A baseball state tournament bracket won't be there till tomorrow because of a regional that still has to be finished. And then, of course, girls golf, Merritt and Class 2A there over at Weatherford at Prairie West, teeing off or about to tee off in the first round of their girls state tournament. And then Elk City is down in Blanchard for the 4A girls state golf tournament at Winter Creek. The Elkettes will tee off today and play there. So lots of good stuff going on. And, of course, as soon as we know official game times or what have you for the Big Elks in Manford, we will let that cat out of the bag, as well as the Class A baseball state tournament bracket coming tomorrow with, Canute, Arapahoe Butler involved in that one. And then we might get a Class B today, which, granted, it's in that Class B baseball state tournament. If we do, if it comes out here in just a little bit, we'll tell you here. If not, it'll be on the sports report tonight. Letting you know when those games and where they'll be. They'll all be at Shawnee. We do know that, right?
No.
A will be at Shawnee.
Everything in Class A will be at Shawnee. Yeah. Just Class B finals will be in Shawnee. I cannot remember. I think they're in Moore or something. I have to look it up. It's right on the website.
Hanging out here on a Monday. A couple of texts from the text line talking about the issues with the weather and changing around the track meets with the golf tournaments. and it's exactly right. The golf being involved in this is probably the main issue, because for the 99% majority of every other sport that is played, these playoffs are held at member institutions' facilities. Mm-hmm. Take away the big house and the brick, for baseball, what have you, but almost everything else is at a high school facility. Well, high schools don't have anything to do with golf courses, right? And so that makes the challenge when golf is thrown into here like it is today, that makes that challenge immensely more difficult, because you think about it, Winter Creek, even over at Weatherford. Yeah, you're giving up your golf course for the mornings or into mid-afternoon today and tomorrow, and now you're going to ask that to happen on Wednesday too. Yeah, people are going to get mad. I mean, the memberships of those places are probably a pretty big obstacle in order for that to happen. I mean, I'm just thinking about here. Guys like to get out there 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, and that, I guess it's, if it goes off without a hitch, it's fine. But at the same time, now you're kind of stringing up 3 days in a row, and I'm sure that is the problem.
What happened to? They used to go to Hefner all the time.
Not there.
It's not happening there.
Well, I know that they've had some renovation on those golf courses, and the truth of it is, it's a big deal. It takes a lot of stuff to work when you have those, what I'm saying, when you're hosting those. Now, those people put in the bid to do it, and they're willing to do it, but I also think we're also not talking about, like, say, the board of a club that would have a problem. We're talking about the other 200 or 50 or however many members that all of a sudden, wait a minute, you're tying my course up 3 days now. I'm sure that that's part of it.
Right.
As far as being able to have the flexibility to just kind of move from when stuff happens on Saturday like it did, to be able to reschedule that. I'm sure that's part of it. And especially when golf is involved. If this was just like, track and baseball or softball, I think it'd be a lot easier to be able to accommodate it, because those, like I said, those facilities that are being used are part of the OSSAA, whereas no school, to my knowledge, in Oklahoma owns a golf course.
Surprise Heritage Hall doesn't have one.
I mean, there's not a place that has that.
Real quick, before we get off high school, there's a question of why Class A and B will not be at Bricktown, because the now Oklahoma City Baseball Club, the dumbest thing ever, is hosting a game, on a series. But the next weekend,
I know the finals of 4A is going to be there.
They are on the road, so it looks like that the 4A finals will be there. That's
what I've been told.
And others. So that's why it's all at Shawnee.
Yeah.
Which kudos. I mean, it's Shawnee, bouncing back from that tornado.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, right? Because that's where 4A's always been, 2A, 3A, and 4A, and that wasn't there in the last year, and the one game moved the year before because of rain. The 2 years ago, the semifinals, you had the first round at Shawnee, and then the semifinals ended up at Noble.
That's right,
because of the rain at Shawnee, and trying to find a place for it to happen that day. That was pretty wild.
That was a wild day. Yeah,
inside the kind of the circle of how that all worked. That was pretty interesting. Yeah, Mark on the text line, I've heard that exact same thing.
What's that? Let me look.
Just last year. Well, this is just what happened. I know last year, Weatherford put in a new sprinkler system.
Oh, okay.
Whole irrigation, but I don't know. There were some delays in the project and whatnot, and I know that the course just hasn't necessarily healed up from that just yet. Mm-hmm. And they're thinking it may even be a whole season more of growing and watering, and then this time next year, hopefully it's back to where it was before that whole project started. Last year, I think at this time they hosted both girls and boys 4A state tournaments, and I think they had just gotten part of the course back with water. And that was the first time in like 90 days. So I mean, you can imagine even in the wintertime, and as spring begins, you can imagine how that works, and it doesn't necessarily.
They'll get it back in shape. Yeah,
it will. It's just a matter. It's going to take longer than they had hoped.
Yeah. Have you seen the water feature at Riverside that they put in front of 15?
No.
The 15 green, or it's part of the green, or it's like I was told this. I saw a video, but I couldn't. It wasn't really pulled back, so I can get a real grasp of how it looks. I believe that's a par 3.
Yeah, it's when you go over the tracks.
Yeah.
The first hole after the tracks.
Yes. Huh. And there's this neat little water feature.
Like on the hole?
Well, I have to read the comments. They said, "Is that in front of the green?" And someone said, "Yes."
So they just added that completely.
I just assume it'd be on the side, near the track, the golf cart track. I don't know. I'd love to see more broader, more pulled back views. It looks really cool. I love stuff like that on golf courses, and adds to the allure of a golf course. But that's pretty cool, being proactive, doing cool stuff like that over there.
Last question about on the text line. Yes, we do know who the Elks play in baseball. They will play Manford. And I think we know that it's going to be 2 games on Thursday, game times pending. I do not know that yet. But from what I've been told, Manford will be the opponent. Couple of games Thursday, and if necessary, game Friday. Of course, that's all weather pending. Game times, don't know that yet, but I would imagine by this evening on the Skinny on Sports Report, all of that would be public knowledge. I would imagine that would be that would be decided sometime here today, and then we'll know. But we do know Manford is the opponent. The Elks were ranked 3rd. Manford's the 14th seed, so we do know that. All right, tonight in the NBA, Thunder looked to sweep the Pelicans. I thought it was a really impressive last 3 quarters of Saturday's win down in New Orleans. Got off to a little bit of a scuffling start, especially offensively, but then Casey Wallace came off the bench and provided a spark, and then the cast of characters that we've gotten so used to showing up and performing for Oklahoma City did. Chet had by far his worst game, but everybody else picked up the slack. And OKC leads 3-0 with a chance to sweep tonight down in New Orleans. I felt like this was going to be a 5-game series from the very beginning, but I also thought that meant New Orleans needed to win on Saturday, because now the Lakers did it. They got down 3-0 and then won Game 4 on their home floor to force a Game 5 tonight. But that just seems so difficult when you nobody's ever come back from 3-0 down in the NBA playoffs to win a series. So I guess you try to rally around that. Let's be the first. But the problem is, I think it's hard to sustain that energy in that game tonight for New Orleans at any point when things start to go south. I think it's easy to go, well, good season, fellas. We'll see you in Cancun in a week.
I think so. And their fans are so bad, just late arriving and just not engaged and all that stuff. So, but I always go back to it's just a matchup nightmare. I think it's the Thunder's match up better against New Orleans. I don't think there's any rally in them. I think this is it tonight.
It's really crazy because we've all thought, or we talked about, from Game 1 to Game 2, a huge key in the series is going to be Chet being able to make shots and drive Jonas Valanciunas off the floor. That was true in Game 2, but then in Game 3, Chet was terrible, and Valanciunas still only played 11 minutes. So I don't know if that's something that Willie Green was trying to make an adjustment, that he decided the Thunder had kind of figured out that first formula that he thought might work, having him out there trying to go. I just think that part of it is what the Thunder have built. If they're able to hold their own enough on the glass, then it's going to they have the ball in their court on the matchups, because they have so much versatility on the floor at the same time. They force you to match up to them, not the other way, if OKC can somewhat hold their own on the glass.
Right. I like that Chet had a bad game. Is that weird to say? For everything that you just said, just that they still do all that. I found it oddly satisfying.
So we got that tonight, 7:30, by virtue of the Lakers beating Denver. That pushes the Oklahoma City game to NBA TV, which then means an earlier start, though. So a 7:30 tip down in New Orleans tonight. Oklahoma City a chance to sweep the New Orleans Pelicans, moving to the second round, and then looks like have a pretty decent layoff because of what's happening in the Dallas and the Clippers series, with the Clippers tying that up at 2-2. I think I saw a stat, if Oklahoma City could win tonight and Dallas and the Clippers go the full 7, that means OKC would have played like 4 games in a month almost with the way that they had the break leading into the playoffs.
I don't know if I like that.
And, it hasn't – maybe it did affect the first round game. I would almost – or the game 1 of the series, I would think I would chalk that up more to young guys and inexperience and excitement and maybe a little nervousness, more than the rust versus rest type thing. Mm-hmm. But I know what you're saying here. The one thing that would give you an advantage is if it is the Clippers, then they got to play a tough 7-game series, finish that up, and then probably get 1 day off before they would have to come here. And that would give you a vast advantage, you'd think, in game 1, and then try to make sure you get the second. I think the Clippers almost, with their age and a lot of spots on that team, maybe even throw up the white towel early if things don't go well in a potential game 1 against the Thunder to try to, all right, let's get our legs about us and then focus on the second game of this series as the one maybe we try to steal out of here to go back home tied at 1.
Yeah, I don't know. That's so. No, you're going to ask, who do we want, right?
Yeah, who would you prefer?
Yes, either one.
Man, I tell you what.
I don't know why. I don't think they'll. I think it'll be a better series, obviously, than what we're seeing right now with New Orleans. But I think I'd be okay with either one. Maybe the Mavs more than the Clippers.
Here's the thing about the Clippers. I mean, I know we talked about this when the Clippers dominated game 1. Then Kawhi comes back. They scuffle around in game 2, and they kind of look out of their element. And then game 3 happens. Russ gets ejected, and then now Kawhi doesn't play game 4, and what happens? They get out to a 31-point lead. It's because Kawhi is not 100% healthy. He cannot do everything that his teammates, honestly, are accustomed to him doing, but they still feel the need to try to get him involved. Well, they're getting involved a guy that can't get it done.
Yeah.
Whereas if he's off the floor, even though the 70% of Kawhi isn't better than who's replacing him right now, or whatever the percentage is of Kawhi, and man, then all of a sudden that forces, I think, Harden and Paul George to take the reins, and they did yesterday, and they were awesome. Did you happen to see? I think, and rightfully so in some aspects, people question James Harden in the playoffs. Did you see what he did yesterday? He's the only guy in NBA history to score 30 in a playoff game for 5 different franchises.
I did not see that. I didn't see that stat.
He's the only guy ever to be able to do that.
Kudos to him, I guess.
I think when he gets dogged, it's a little bit more of a lack of team results than maybe how he actually individually plays. And he's had some really bad games and some really big spots, to be fair to those criticizing him. But I thought that was fascinating for a guy that gets zero credit for what he's done in the playoffs to do something like that nobody had ever done. It's kind of a little bit of a catch-22 when you think about him. How much of a chance would you give Minnesota against Denver?
A real good chance.
Like real good, better than 50-50?
Oh, maybe not that far. I like them. Minnesota, what Minnesota's doing. I like what Anthony Edwards just he that dunk should be a logo now, right? On his shoe if he has one. Just what all they're doing athletically is awesome. And I don't know. I like their chances. I mean, obviously a lot better chances than what the Lakers are doing. I give them a good chance. Probably not to the point I'm picking them, but I think it could give us one of the best series so far.
Yeah, they would seem to have some guys to throw at Jokic.
I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Most notably, Gobert.
Yeah.
Less
they play really good defense. So maybe that's why I give them a better chance than most.
And I think people are starting to, Anthony Edwards, first overall pick, he's starting to come into his own as maybe one of those guys as the new face to the league. Because when we come in here tomorrow, there's a pretty good chance that the three guys that have been able to basically carry this league on their shoulders for the better part of the last 20 years, they're all gone out of this playoff run. And that's obviously Steph, Kevin Durant, and LeBron if it happens tonight. And so the league is, it's a little bit like maybe how golf is right now as Tiger's still around but not really a factor. Mm-hmm. He still draws the eyes when he does play or to what extent he can play. But at the same time, everybody knows that it's about over. I feel like that's the way it is right now for the NBA with this very end of the KD, Steph, LeBron run. And now who's next? Who's going to be the next face of the league? And I think Anthony Edwards is one of those guys that's in the mix. I think it's going to be really hard for it not to be Wembanyama, no matter what.
Right.
But him, obviously Shea, Jokic, maybe Tatum, some of those guys are going to be, and maybe it is just sort of that next group, kind of like when Jordan left. It was a group of people. It probably should have been Shaq, but they weren't winning yet. It wasn't Kobe yet. It was AI and Stephon Marbury. It was like this group that was trying to carry the league. Mm-hmm. And then next thing you know, we had Kobe and LeBron, and then here comes Steph and KD, and now it was more individualized instead of a group. Right now, it does seem like until Wembanyama becomes what everybody thinks he's going to be, something like maybe for the next couple of years, I think it's going to be more of a collective waiting on Wemby to be the star.
Right.
Like it was when Jordan left and a group of guys trying to carry the league until, Kobe was ready to take that mantle and run with it. And then, of course, LeBron was right there soon to follow, helping him do that. We mentioned this earlier. I think it's going to be – it's certainly going to be different. Because when you think about what could be happening in the second round of these playoffs, you could have Boston against Orlando, and you could have the Knicks, which I know the Knicks have been around forever, but they haven't been around in the playoffs in a while. Then you got the Knicks and the Pacers, like a throwback to the early 90s. Now, they ain't going to play like that, like they did back then, but that's still a cool kind of nostalgic series. And then on the other side, you get it could be Thunder Mavs, which, Luka's been around, but he hasn't necessarily made his imprint on the playoffs outside of the one Western Conference final run. And then Wolves and Denver. So you kind of got Denver and Boston, one on each side, and then everybody else is a lot of new blood. It feels like it's in this playoff run.
I love it. And I love the parody of it. Because those it's not, and we've said this. It's a lot more interesting for me when we get you don't know what's going to happen, right? I don't think I called for a Timberwolves sweep of the Suns. I had a feeling the Nuggets were going to win, and all those, and on the East side too. I think it's more wide open than what we think. We thought Boston was going to be this so dominant team they're just going to run through it. And then here comes the Heat. Well, I know Celtics righted the ship a little bit, got the win over the weekend, but I'm not counting the Heat out by any means. I love the parody of it. Absolutely do.
Yeah, it's totally different.
Gives everybody a shot. Keeps everybody interested. You keep thinking, what if? What if the matchups are favorable for, let's face it, the Thunder? Talk about the potential second-round matchup. Well, go even further than that. Who do we want if the Thunder are able to get past the Clippers or Mavs? Who do we want in the Western Conference Finals? That could give us the best opportunity to get to the finals. And then who do we want in the finals? And that's what the parody of it all is that excites me, is because you start looking at matchups like, well, the Thunder can match up with a lot of these teams really well. They went 3-1 against the Nuggets. They're not going to be scared of them. looking on the other side, they did beat Boston one time this year. I've seen them 3, 2. So it's just fun. It's so fun, and I'm on board with it, even if it's not the Thunder in the finals, because it's not going to be LeBron, it's not going to be Steph, it's not going to be KD. I'll still stay tuned in to watch whoever that may be.
Yeah, I wonder if people around the country
I know
think like you.
Yeah, I know that.
'Cause I'm afraid that the NBA is looking at this going, oh, no. If we don't get Boston and Denver, this isn't it, man, from a rating standpoint. But I think the basketball fans like it.
That's what I'm saying.
Wrapping up a Monday Thunder game tonight, 7:30 tip down in New Orleans on NBA TV. You know, with the streaming services I know that you and I have, Jared.
Yeah, I'm out.
NBA TV doesn't have Hulu. What does that mean? You're going to have to find somewhere to watch the game.
Yeah.
Where would be the perfect spot? Ding, 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 ding.
Wait.
I'll tell you, the Boomtown Grill. Boomtown would be the perfect location to watch the Thunder hopefully sweep the New Orleans Pelicans right out of the playoffs. And they've got everything. Any type of food, all kinds of beers, all kinds of cocktails, all kinds of wine. I'm talking steak to chicken to seafood, pizza and pasta, burgers, salads, great appetizers, chicken wings. They have got it all. Boomtown, full-service bar, 12 big-screen TVs, happy hour 2 to 6 Monday through Friday, open every day of the week, 11 to 10 on Sunday through Thursday, 11 to 11 on Friday and Saturday, 2103 South Main. That is the Boomtown Grill, your NBA playoff headquarters. All right, Jared, wrapping up the NFL draft, I wanted to, not necessarily the picks and how it affects the teams in the NFL. I want to look at it more locally as far as the colleges. So Oklahoma gets 3 guys picked. Tyler Guyton in the first round, Walter Rouse in the 6th round, and then Jonah Lualu in the 7th round. So that's only 3. That snaps what was a college football leading 16 straight years with at least 4 draft picks. That was the most in college football. That streak is snapped this weekend with only 3. Where do you lay the fault? Who or what's feet do you lay the fault on this thing that Oklahoma only had 3 guys picked?
Well, I'll be optimistic. Is it because there's players like Stutzman and others who chose to stay, and that's why the numbers aren't where they were?
That's clearly true. Stutzman, Billy Bowman, those guys were getting drafted. Now, they weren't probably going to get as drafted as high as they wanted to, therefore they came back, which I would also put something else as a caveat on that. With them staying, I would assume there also is a 3-letter entity now that helps with people staying, and that's the NIL. You can stay and make some money as opposed to feeling forced to have to go and then maybe not realizing your full value once you get into that NFL draft. I don't think there's any doubt that is part of this. I think the number one thing is the transfer portal.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's 2 quarterbacks that were drafted that both started at OU.
That's a good point.
Now you can make the case back that a couple of the guys that did get picked came from the portal.
Right.
All 3.
Right.
So but it's that, in and out type of thing. But I think that definitely hurt this, players staying hurt. And then here is what we're starting to see. I think we're also starting to see that the talent level that Lincoln Riley took over at Oklahoma isn't as high as the talent level that Lincoln Riley left Oklahoma with when he departed. Anybody that wants to blame Brent Venables for this lack of drafting, he's been here for 2 years.
Yeah,
his guys aren't even eligible for the damn draft.
Yeah, the cycle isn't there.
They're not there yet.
No.
So if you want to blame a person, I would blame Lincoln Riley. And it's maybe not even the quality of his recruiting classes, but the quality of the character of the people that were in it. think about all the guys that have come and gone versus now. The transfer portal is more in than out, with impact guys at least, at Oklahoma than it was when Riley was here. And decommits during the recruiting process, a lot of that has settled down with Venables. And, oh, by the way, at least by the rankings of those recruiting classes, that's starting to go back up. And so I think that the dirty little secret around college football is starting to come to the forefront, and that is Lincoln Riley's probably better at using your talent than you are, but he's not as good at amassing it as you are. Just my opinion. Also, Oklahoma State, nobody drafted this year. I think that'll change in a big way next year. Obviously, Ollie Gordon. Yeah. Ollie Gordon's getting drafted. I think Colin Oliver would get drafted. Kendall Daniels would get drafted. I think Brendan Presley's got a chance to be a draft pick. There's some other wide receivers that are more of that NFL frame that we haven't quite seen either by injury or, some guys coming on at the end of the year. I think you might see one or two of those. Some offensive linemen that have been there forever. So I think next year is going to be a really, really good year, probably for both state schools, honestly, getting guys into the NFL draft versus what we saw this year.
Yeah, that goes back to guys not coming out for the draft or not even eligible for the draft. Why Oklahoma State? Oklahoma State's going to be a big-time player in the Big 12, big contender in the Big 12 because of those guys you mentioned. Yeah, next year might be different. Should be.
I think it will be in both spots. I think you're going to see 5 or 6 picked at minimum probably from both schools. This was just kind of it was a weird year, but if you're an Oklahoma fan, you're obviously screaming at the radio right now going, this is OU, that shouldn't happen. They should always be stocked with enough talent to get more than 3 guys picked in the NFL draft. I don't necessarily disagree with that, but at the same time, if you do get one of these years where it looks like you are going to have 3 other guys and then they all decide to stay, do you decide to in your own mind, I'll sacrifice the ridicule that's going to come in the post-draft talk for having 3 NFL players back on my roster next year? I think you do that in a heartbeat.
Oh, yeah.
And same way at OSU. There's guys that could have come out, but they're not. And so maybe you take a little in early or late April, early May from some, the talking heads and whatnot, and hopefully you make that back up by December and January because the team you're putting on the floor or on the field is going to be better than than it would have been if you would have reaped the rewards of the NFL draft.
The NIL angle is wild to me, thinking that I'll take a pay cut to go through the NFL. I would have to take a pay cut because my draft stock isn't as high in the money bracket here. So I'm going to stay in college so I can continue to get paid more than what I would have gotten in my rookie deal.
Yeah, and you know what?
That's wild.
And even just paid. Maybe it's not more, but it also is the ability, to make a little bit of money and then also be more secure with yourself as a person on a college campus than you would have been.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
In the NFL. And maybe, guys just decide I don't want to be a pro for another year. And now, I'm not making as much as I would have, but I'm making enough to where I can handle this for another year. Mm-hmm. So it is an interesting. It is really interesting, and I wonder. Once we need a larger sample size, obviously, but if you look back 10 years from now, and you look at these 10 years versus the previous 10, how big a change we might see as far as the non-seniors or the non-4-year guys, if that number shrinks because you just don't get as many because of NIL, because they're able to stay.
Yeah.
And they want to stay and they're able to stay versus almost being forced at times because of financial situations and striking while the iron is however hot it is, to almost be forced to do it. And if that'll change. So Numbers will be fun to watch. Don't forget today, Big Elk TV, we will have live updates from Winter Creek and Blanchard. Class 4A girls state golf tournament. And Gabe and Sean are down there. Looks like it's going to be a gorgeous day.
Oh, yeah.
Today and tomorrow. It'll be windy tomorrow, but then after that, rain chances go up. Everyone have a great Monday.
You've been listening to the Skinny on Sports podcast with Aaron Cow. Be sure to hit that subscribe button to get alerts of when the latest podcast is available. Thanks for listening.
That ball is blistered to right. Way